Good morning, students. This is M. Rajaslochana, your computer science teacher. I'm very glad to teach you computer science and enjoy with you learning computer science for the next 2 years. Now, let us start seeing the important aspect of examination, that is mark distribution in computer science. So far, you might have learned and written exams for 100 marks, or you might have some internal marks. You might be having only written exams in theory. Here in 11th class you are going to write written exam, theory as well as practicals. So hands-on session is very important here. So let us see the mark distribution first, then we will enter into the first topic. So this is the mark distribution for your theory exam. In 11th class, finally you will be writing the board exams, for which you will be writing for 70 marks. For the 70 marks, unit 1, computer system and organization, it consists of 10 marks. Okay. Then computational thinking and programming 1 for 45 marks. Then third unit, society, law and ethics for 15 marks. So totally altogether 70 marks. You will be getting questions for 10 marks from unit 1, 45 marks from unit 2 and 15 marks from unit 3. So if you take this unit 2 is going to be the major part of your computer science. So here you will learn the programming language Python. Okay. So now we are going to start with unit 1, computer system and organization. The basics of computers and its architecture. So first let us see this first unit. Before that I'll say you the mark distribution for practicals also. So practicals you will be having Python programs alone. So we will be doing hands-on session once you enter into the school. Otherwise we can set up the Python in your we can install it in your systems and you can start doing the programs slowly, which I will show as demo in the online classes. Now this is the mark distribution for your practical session. See, totally for 30 marks it is split up into 12 plus 10 plus 8. So here for the 12 marks you have to write program in the lab session. So for this program 60% of logic, 20% of documentation and 20% of code, altogether 12 marks will be for the Python program that you are going to write in the lab test. Then you will be having a record. So in that record minimum of 20 Python programs we have to write. For that 7 marks, and during the practical examination you will be asked for Viva voice questions. So for that 10 marks, and finally 8 marks for the project. So we will be doing a small mini project by the end of the year. Means before 2 months we have to complete the project. So this is the total split up of 30 marks for the practical. Now let us get into the first unit, that is computer system organization. So now before we get into the major part, the main core of this computer system organization, let us list out the topics that we are going to learn in this chapter, so that you will get a clear idea of what you are going to learn. So these are the topics that you are going to learn in this unit. First we will discuss about basic computer organization, then the types of software, then memory units, Boolean logic, number system, encoding schemes, concept of compiler and interpreter, operating system, then the concept of cloud computing and cloud services, and mainly blockchain technology. See, this is a very important and new trend technology in computer science. Okay. So first let us get into topic number 1, basic computer organization. Okay. So what is a computer? Before you see the organization, let us say what is a computer. See, computer, if you abbreviate it, we can say it is a commonly oriented machine, which is used for, particularly used for trade, education and research. So this is how we can abbreviate computer. So computer is nothing but, if you are asked to write about computer in one line, simply you can write it this way: commonly oriented machine particularly used for trade, education and research. Now if you are asked to define computer, what is meant by computer? So technically you have to write it this way. So computer is an electronic device Yes, computer is an electronic device. Why it is an electronic device? It can be operated only with the help of electricity. So it is an electronic device which can perform tasks automatically as per the instructions given by the user. So this is the definition of what is a computer. So it is an electronic device because it can operate only with the help of electricity. Now this can perform tasks automatically. Once if we feed the instruction, it will perform the tasks automatically. Okay, so it will follow the instructions which will be given by the user. So this is the definition of computer. Now next we'll see the prerequisites of computer. The basic principle of computer. What is the basic principle of any machine? If we take the basic principle of any machine, it will follow the principle of IPO. Mainly computers follow the principle of IPO. So basic principle of computer is IPO. So what is IPO? IPO stands for input, process and output. So the user has to give input to the computer system which will be processed by the machine, the computer, and after processing the result will be displayed to the user as output. So this is the basic principle of a computer. Now let us see what is meant by data and information. So whenever we ask students usually about data, they used to say the answers as it is a collection of information, but it is totally wrong. You know what is meant by data? It is not collection of information, it is collection of some raw facts or raw values which is unprocessed and it is meaningless, it doesn't have any meaning. For example, if I write a value 1, RAM, 90, science. These are some raw values, raw facts. Can you understand any meaning from this? You know, simply number 1 is a numerical value, RAM is some name, 90 is also a numerical value, science is some subject name, that's all you know. But it doesn't have any meaning. But after processing, so this is what is all about data. But once if all these data values are processed, we will get a meaningful information. So information is nothing but processed data which has some meaning. So information is processed data which is meaningful, Okay, For example, as I told you, number 1, RAM, 90, science, all these are raw facts. Suppose if I process all these data, I can say roll number 1 named Ram has scored 90 marks in science. So this is a meaningful information. So after processing all those raw values, I have got a meaningful information. So this is the difference between data and information. So data means raw facts or raw values which doesn't have any meaning. Whereas information means processed data which is meaningful. Okay. So I told you that computers are going to follow input, process, output cycle. So the raw facts are going to be input which will be processed by the computers, and we will get the meaningful information as output. Okay, this is the basic principle of a computer. Now let us get into the major components of computer. So if we see the major components of a computer, hardware and software is the major combination of a computer. What is a hardware? What is a software? Hardware is the physical device, the physical or peripheral device that you can see and touch. For example, keyboard, mouse, monitor, all these are hardware. And what is meant by software? Software is nothing but set of instructions or programs given by the user to perform a task. Suppose I want to perform addition of two numbers. I can give the instruction in C language as C is equal to A plus B. This is an arithmetic expression. So here C is a variable, A is a variable, B is a variable. Addition will be performed upon the two numbers stored in A and B. So this instruction is given to the computer in the form of either programs or instructions, commands. These are nothing but software. So hardware means the physical device or the peripherals which you can see and touch, whereas software is set of instructions or programs that is given to the computers by the user to perform any task, any computational task. Okay. Now, without hardware, the software is useless. Likewise, without software, the hardware is useless. So, both are depending upon each other. So, we can say hardware and software are interdependent. Interdependent means both are depending upon each other. See, for example, I want to listen to some music in the computer system, let us say. I have the monitor, I have the speakers ready. Mainly to hear some music, we need speakers or headphones. So that is ready, the hardware is ready. But to play that in the computer system, we need a software. For example, VLC media player. It is a software to play some music in the computer system. So, even if you have the hardware, without software, it is useless. So, both are depending upon each other. So, we are saying hardware and software are interdependent. So, these are the basics that you need to know about a computer. Now, let us move on to the organization. So, this is the basic computer organization picture. You have the I/O unit. I/O stands for input output unit. You have the CPU, central processing unit, or we can say it as processor, inside which you have three more units: ALU, arithmetic logic unit, control unit, and registers. Then you have memory, which are connected by bus. So, the upcoming topics we are going to discuss is all about these components only. What is the input unit? What is an output unit? What are the major responsibilities of these two units? What is meant by memory? What are the different types of memory? what is the role of processor, what is the use of bus. Okay, so when you are asked to draw the architectural diagram of the basic computer organization, you can draw this. You have IO units which is connected to CPU and memory. Inside CPU you have ALU, registers and control unit. So this is the block diagram of basic computer organization. Now let us see about input unit. So input unit is used for converting the datas or the instructions into binary form so that the machine can understand, the computer can understand, because computers can understand only binary language. What does mean by binary language? It is nothing but zeros and ones. Computer can understand only these two things, zeros and ones. What does 0 represent? What does 1 represent? Why computer can understand only these two languages? When I told you the definition of computer initially, I told you that computer is an electronic device. So it can be operated only by electricity, I told you. So it can understand only two things, on or off. On means 1, off means 0. Like this is high voltage, this is low voltage. So computers can understand only zeros and ones. Since it is an electronic device, it can understand only of these two states, electronic off and on. Okay. Now the computers can get the input from the user, but user can give the input only in their own comfortable language. But it should be converted into binary form so that it can understand and perform the task easily. Now that responsibility is given to the input unit. So what this input unit will do is, it will get the input from the user, convert it into binary form, then give it to the computer system. So the main commonly used input devices are keyboard, mouse, webcam, trackball, microphone, scanner, cameras, touch screen, and you have so many other input units also. Mainly we will use keyboard, commonly used device. So here in keyboard the input will be in the form of text. In mouse the input will be in the form of clicks, mouse pointer clicks, left click, right click or double click. So scanner, to scan the images. So if the input is in the form of images, we will use scanner. If the input is going to be in the form of voice, we will use microphones. Okay. So there are some more input devices that are light pen. So digital pens, nothing but light pen, touch screen. See, nowadays in even mobile phones we are using touch screens only. So the input is in the form of touches. So these were nothing but replaced by mouses. In mouses we used to give clicks. Here in touch screen we used to give touches. Then optical card reader. So nowadays mainly we are using cards. Whenever we go for shopping, we will use either digital card or our ATM cards, debit cards, credit cards. So all those will be read by the optical card reader. Then magnetic ink character reader. This MICR code is used uniquely in banks. If you take your checkbooks or your DDs, demand draft, you can see this like this, a code will be there. That is what is called as MICR, magnetic ink character recognition. To avoid fraud kind of things, we are using this. Then optical barcode reader. So optical barcode reader, mainly when you go for shopping, you might have seen some products which is having barcode, unique barcode for each and every product. So that can be scanned by the optical barcode reader. Then voice recognition devices, like I told you, microphones. Then optical mark reader, OMR. So mainly in your entrance exams, you will be having OMR sheets where you will shade like this, which is the correct option. So that can be scanned and corrected with the help of optical mark reader. So these are the various input devices used in computer system. Now let us move on to the output unit. So now the computer system has processed the input and it is ready with the result. It has to be given to the user. Now the user can understand only human readable language like English or whatever it is. Now the result is in binary form. So output unit takes the responsibility of converting the output in binary form to human readable form. So the human being, the user, can understand what is the output. So the output will be either in the form of printed text or in audio. Yes. So mainly we will use monitor, the displaying unit, printer, the output will be in printed form, then speakers, audio form, webcam, microphones, all these are some output devices. So its main responsibility is it will convert the output in binary form to human readable form. Yes, so this is all about the IO units, input unit as well as output unit. Now let us come to the major part of the computer organization, CPU, that is Central Processing Unit. So the Central Processing Unit is the brain of the computer. It is the brain of the computer. Okay, so it consists of 3 units, ALU, CU and register. What is ALU? Arithmetic and logic unit. So what is the purpose of this unit? It will perform some arithmetic and logical calculations. You know what are arithmetic calculations? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus to find the remainder. Now logical operators like and, or and not. So to perform any computation, we need to do some arithmetic operations and logical operations. So that will be performed by the ALU. Now CU. CU is nothing but the control unit. So this is the major and important component of a computer system and processor. CU is the control unit. So it acts like a supervisor of a computer. So through the control signals, it will trigger all the other units of what to do and when to do, what task to be done. So this is the main unit of a processor. See, for human beings you have brain, and inside brain you have smaller units called neurons. So what that neurons will do is, it will produce the control signals and trigger for each and every action done by the human being. Suppose when our hands are going to touch anything very hot, the neurons will immediately generate the control signals and tell the person that it is going to be very hot and remove your hand immediately from that object. Likewise, this control unit also creates the control signals and trigger each and every component of the computer system to perform its task and when it has to be performed. Then registers. Registers are temporary workplace. Temporary workplace means when arithmetic operations are happening, you need some workplace to perform the operation. See, in your maths notebook you will have 2 margins like this. This is for writing like question number, and here you will do all the rough works to hold the data. Suppose if my task is to perform addition on 2 numbers, 5 plus 5. So I will take 5 here, plus 5, I will perform 10. So this is a temporary place to perform all these operations. No? Similarly, registers are small tiny memory units, temporary memory units, which is used for performing some temporary calculations, arithmetic operations in the processor. So this is all about the central processing unit. Okay. Now next we will move on to memory. So initially computers were used for performing some computations or calculations. Nowadays we are using computers mainly for storing data. Now when it comes to the storage, there are 2 types of memory. So memory is of 2 types, primary memory and secondary memory. Primary memory is nothing but the internal memory or systems memory. Primary memory or we can say this is main memory or internal memory. Now secondary memory means external memory or secondary storage device. Secondary storage device. Okay, now let us see how the primary memory will be in computer system. So computer memory consists of sequence of memory cells. So these sequence of memory cells, each and every memory cell will have its own unique location specified by its address. So each and every memory cell will have sequence of 8 bits, altogether will form 1 byte. So I told you computers can store or understand only zeros and ones. 1 bit. So 1 bit can be either 0 or 1. So altogether these 8 bits will form a byte. So each memory cell will has 8 bits, which is called a byte. A bit is the most smallest elementary unit of a memory. Okay. So as I told you, bit can remember either the 0 state, that is off state, or 1, which is on state, that is electronic switch on and off. Okay, yes. So how your data will be stored in computer memory? As I told you, sequence of 8 bits will give you 1 byte. Each memory byte can store 8-bit pattern of data. So whatever data you give, it will be stored in the form of 8-bit pattern, a byte. Okay, so this is how it will be stored inside the computer memory. So it can be accessed with the help of its unique location called address. So in memory we can perform 2 operations, memory cell operations. 2 operations are there. One is read and one is write. Read is nothing but accessing. Whatever is stored, if you want to retrieve or access, that performance is called as read. Suppose if you want to store anything, any data, that is called as write. Okay, so the control unit will select a cell and the data will get in, means will get stored in. That operation is called as write. When you select a cell through the control unit, if you read the data, if you sense the data, access the data, that is called as read operation. So there are 2 memory cell operations, read and write. Now the memory measurement units. The elementary unit is bit, 1 bit. The very smallest unit is bit. It can be either of 0 or 1. Now 4 bits together will form a nibble. 8 bits together will form 1 byte. Now 2 power 10, that is 1024 bytes will form a kilobyte. Then 1024 kilobytes will form a megabyte. 1024 megabytes will give you gigabyte. 1024 gigabytes will give you terabytes. 1024 terabytes will give you petabytes. 1024 terabytes will give you, petabytes will give you 1 exabyte. This is petabyte. Okay. So 1024 exabyte will give you 1 zettabyte. 1024 zettabyte will give you 1 yottabyte. 1024 yottabytes will give you 1 prontobyte, and 1024 prontobytes will give you 1 zeobyte. This zeobyte is going to be the largest memory unit, the largest or highest memory unit of a computer system. The smallest is bit. The largest is 1 geobyte, which is nothing but 2 power 10 prontobyte. Okay. Yes, these are the memory units, memory measurement units in a computer system. Now let us move on to the primary memory. Primary memory again is of 2 types. So primary memory is again of 2 types. Primary memory or main memory is of 2 types. They are RAM and ROM. RAM means random access memory, ROM means read-only memory. Let us see these 2 in detail. So RAM. So RAM stands for random access memory. Random access memory. So from the name only, we can say that the data from this memory can be accessed randomly. Both read and write operation can be performed in this random access memory. So this is the pictorial representation of RAM. So this is how a RAM looks like if you open your motherboard and see. So this RAM cells, memory cells can be accessed for information transfer from any desired random location. It is not compulsory that you have to access the data which is in sequential order in the memory locations. You can access it from anywhere in the memory. That is why it is called as random access memory. Next, it is volatile. Volatile means what? Not permanent. Why it is not permanent? See, these are the system's memory. So, whenever there is a sudden power cut, the data will be erased. It will be not saved for future purpose. So, it is not permanent. It is volatile. See, for example, you are typing some text in the Word document, let us say. You have not even stored it in your hard disk. So, suddenly there is a power cut. After once again you got the power, now you are switching on your system. Now you cannot see your text being typed in the Word document because it is not saved in the secondary storage unit. It was stored temporarily in the RAM, which is volatile. So when there is a power cut, obviously everything will be erased. So it is volatile, means non-permanent. Now it is an important term, memory access time. Now the amount of time taken to produce the data required from memory from the start of access until the availability of data is called as memory access time. So now I start searching for a data. From that point till I get the data available, then that time taken is called as the memory access time. So you have two different types of RAM, DRAM and SRAM. So DRAM stands for dynamic RAM and SRAM stands for static RAM. So in DRAM you have transistors and capacitors. Today's DRAM chips will have the access times ranging from 20 to 70 nanoseconds. See, this is a second. It will not even take this much of time to access the data from the RAM. It is less than this, means 20 to 70 nanoseconds. All of you know, nano means 2 power minus 9. So, SRAM means static RAM. It is made up of flip-flops. Instead of transistors and capacitors, in SRAM it is made up of flip-flops. All these are smaller electronic devices. Okay. So, this offers faster access time than the DRAM. DRAM itself is taking very few seconds, very few nanoseconds. Whereas SRAM is having faster access time 10 times than that of 10 nanoseconds than that of dynamic RAM. Okay. So, these are the two different types of RAMs. So, RAM is random access memory. From anywhere in the memory location, desired memory location, you can access the data. You can perform both read as well as write. It is volatile, means it is not permanent. Once if there is a power cut, sudden power cut, the data will be erased. So, if you want the data to be permanent, you have to store it in the secondary storage unit. So, the amount of time taken to produce the data required from memory from the start of access until the availability of data is called memory access time. So, there are two types of RAM. One is DRAM and the other one is SRAM, dynamic RAM and static RAM. DRAM is made up of transistors and capacitors. SRAM is made up of flip-flops. DRAM will take 20 to 70 nanoseconds to produce the data. SRAM will be more faster than DRAM. Okay. Now, let us move on to the second type, ROM. ROM stands for read-only memory. So, as the name says, only you can perform the read operation. In RAM, we can perform both read as well as write, whereas in ROM, you can perform only read operation. You cannot perform write operation in this memory. So, it performs only read. So, by the IC manufacturers itself, some content information will be stored in. you can only access it. You cannot perform any write operation here. Okay. For example, the OS programs will be stored in ROM. So we are not going to alter anything in the operating system programs. So such kind of built-in programs will be stored in ROM. So it is non-volatile, means it is permanent. It will be used whenever we are using the computer system, whenever we perform any tasks. So this is all about ROM. In ROM also you have 5 different types. They are PROM, EPROM, EEPROM, Flash EEPROM and Mask ROM. I told you that you cannot perform any write operation in ROM, but you can program it. Okay. So Mask ROM is not user programmable ROM. It means it will be programmed by the IC manufacturers itself. The users cannot perform any programs here. Now the remaining 4 types are user programmable ROM. The first one is PROM. PROM stands for programmable read-only memory. So this can be programmed only once by the user. So why it is otherwise called as OTP, that is one-time programmable read-only memory. One-time programmable read-only memory. So in this the information is burnt using the ROM burner. Burnt means storing. Okay, yes. Next is EPROM. EPROM means erasable programmable read-only memory. So programmable read-only memory means only one time you can program it. Whereas erasable programmable read-only memory means you can perform as many times you want. You can program it as many times you want by erasing it. So the UV radiation is used for erasing it. So it takes up to 20 minutes for erasing. The entire content will be erased and you can program it once again totally. Yes. So that is what is EPROM, erasable programmable read-only memory. Okay. Next is EEPROM. EE stands for electrically erasable programmable memory. Electrically erasable means this will be much more faster than erasable, because here you will be exposing the ROM chips to UV radiations for erasure. Here electrically it will be erased, so it will be much more faster. So here you can selectively erase the data. Instead of totally erasing the entire content, selectively you can erase the data in electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. Next is Flash EEPROM. Flash EEPROM will be much more faster than electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. But here the entire content will be erased instead of selective erasure. So these are the different types of ROMs. Next, let us move on to secondary memory or secondary storage unit. When the computers have primary memory, its own memory, why we require this secondary memory? What is its need? So two things are there. There are two major drawbacks of primary memory. One is it has limited storage capacity. The main drawback is it is volatile. Means it is not permanent. So if you want to save your data for future reference, you should use secondary storage unit for storing your data. So computers need to store and retrieve data for processing. Since primary memory has limited storage capacity and it is not permanent, we have to move on with another option, which is the secondary storage devices. So there is a difference between memory and storage. Memory means it is not permanent. It is just a temporary thing to store the data and for performing some operations. Whereas storage means the data will be stored permanently for future use also. Now, the commonly used secondary storage devices are hard disk, CD, DVDs, flash memory and Blu-ray disc. So, hard disk will come under the magnetic media classification. CD-ROMs and DVDs will come under the optical media. Then you have flash memory and Blu-ray disc. Let us see each and every one. Hard disk. So this is the hard disk. You might have seen it when you open your CPU or your laptop. So this is the hard disk, secondary storage device. It stores the information on one or more circular platters. So these are the circular platters. It looks like a disk, this is the circular platter or disk which are continually spinning. So this disk will be continually spinning. So this is the header. This one is the header. So these rotating disks are coated with magnetic. So these will be coated with magnetic and stacked with space between them. So these disks, there will be one or more disks. So these disks will be spaced, stacked means stored upon one another. It will be placed upon one another like this with some space. In order to avoid overlapping of data, we have space between these two. So the information is recorded on the surface of rotating disk like by the magnetic heads as a magnetic spots like this, some small magnetic spots. So this is the magnetic head. So these hard disks are very expensive and you have the storage capacity from like gigabytes to up to megabytes. So this is all about a hard disk. Next is compact disc. All of you know that very well. CDs. Most of you might have used it. So CDs will come under optical media, where the data will be stored in the form of optics, lights. In hard disk, we have stored the data in the form of magnetic spots. There, in the form of light, we will store the data. Okay. So with the help of red rays, we will store the data in the CDs. We will use CD burners to store the data. Okay. Now, these are of three types. CD-R, recordable, CD read-only memory and CD rewritable. So, CD-ROM means read-only memory. Already I told you read-only means you cannot perform any write operation. So, it can store only the information and not the data. Means, for example, you might have got some CDs attached with your book. It will have only some information. You cannot perform any write operation over it. Like encyclopedia, then any book related, e-books related CDs. So all these will come under ROM. So it will have stored data. You will not perform any write operation in it. You cannot perform. Now recordable. So CD-R means recordable. So here only once you can write the data. You can burn the data only once. In recordable, you can perform write only once. Once if it is written, once the data are stored in it, you cannot rewrite it. Whereas RW means rewritable. So rewritable means, suppose if you have stored something wrong, what you can do, you can erase it off and you can store the new data, the current data, the correct data once again. So these are the different types of CDs. Next, DVDs. DVDs are also very similar to CDs, but the storage capacity is 15 times more than CDs. And the accessing times faster. Access time is 20 times faster than CDs. Faster than CDs. Okay. Again, DVDs are also of three types: ROM, recordable and rewritable. Here also in DVD-ROM, you can perform only read operation. You cannot store the data in it. DVD-R, recordable means only once you can store the data. RW, rewritable means you can write the data as many times as you wish by erasing the wrong one again and again. Next is flash memory. So flash memory is small ultra portable storage device with the solid state memory. Solid state memory means it is very similar to RAM. From anywhere in the memory you can access the data. And this storage unit ranges from 256 megabytes to 128 gigabytes. And more than that also nowadays the flash memories are available. Now a very good example for flash memory is pen drive. Pen drives. Okay, so you know that very well. It is very inexpensive. Might be from 250 rupees onwards you are getting the pen drives. Whereas hard disk is the expensive secondary storage device. CDs and DVDs are also of very cheap cost. Next is Blu-ray disc. Blu-ray disc is also very similar to CDs and DVDs, but it is used for storing high definition videos and data. So high definition means, see, nowadays everything, the quality is very high. We can say if you take TVs or LED monitors, LCD monitors, you have everything in HD form. HD standard. So HD stands for high definition. So to store those high definition videos and data, we can use this Blu-ray disc. The main thing is its storage capacity is very high, which is 128 gigabytes. It is little expensive than CDs and DVDs. When we compare CDs and DVDs to Blu-ray disc, in CDs and DVDs we will use red laser lights for storing the data, whereas in Blu-ray disc we will use UV lights, ultraviolet. That is why it is named as Blu-ray disc. Okay, so these are the main points that you have to know in Blu-ray disc. Here the data will be tightly packed with the exposing it to ultraviolet radiation. The data will be tightly packed. So why the storage capacity is very high. So this is all about the secondary storage unit. Now in the memory organization, we have seen you have IO unit, you have memory unit, you have CPU or processor, and all these components were connected through by a system bus. So what is a system bus? So the system bus is nothing but an electronic pathway which is composed of so many connecting cables that will connect the major components of a computer system. So technically, we should not say it as cables. It is nothing but a system bus. So it is the electronic pathway to connect the major components of a computer system. This should be the definition of a system bus. So here you can see in this diagram, this is the pictorial representation or block diagram of the system bus. So this system bus is connecting the input-output unit to memory as well as to the CPU. So here you have three different types of a system bus. Those are control bus, address bus and data bus. So what this data bus will do? It will carry the datas to and fro from the memory unit to input unit, or from the input unit to memory unit, or from input unit to CPU for processing the data and for storing the result from CPU to memory unit, or from memory unit to output unit. So the main responsibility of data bus is it will carry the data. Okay, next is address bus. Okay, when we are searching for some data, when you have to fetch some data which is stored in memory, you can do it only with the help of address. So that address will be carried by, it will carry the address location, memory address location. So this memory address location will be carried by the address bus. So next is control bus. I told you that the control unit is an important unit in our processor because it produces the control signals and it triggers each and every unit to perform its tasks at the perfect timings. Now this control signals will be carried over by the control bus. The control signals will be carried over by the control bus. So this is all about the basic computer system organization. We have discussed about input unit, output unit, memory, the different types of memory, about RAM, ROM and secondary storage unit. Next we discussed about the system bus. So students, all of you go through this video. I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you.